Hello, friends. Welcome to another edition of the Trequartista Podcast. I'm Giuseppe La Rocca, joined by Noah Curtis, Mike Torres, the original crew, the Trequartista crew. Mike, how's it going?
It's going pretty well today, Joe.
Why is that, Mike?
Feels staged. I want a little bit of a bet today.
Well, yeah. What was the bet?
If those that remember our last podcast in Joe's living room, we had a little wager about who's going to come out on top in the Europa League semifinals.
In the Europa League semifinals, right? We're going to get to that. Obviously, there's a lot to talk about. What was the bet, by the way? I don't remember exactly. I think we bet a stake, but for you, I think it was a little different. So if I were to win, if Juventus were to win, not me, but if Juventus won this past match, Mike, and this is great, he was going to have to take a nude photo, right, with a 10-gallon bucket hat covering his private parts, and just, a little,
tasteful.
A little
it was
tasteful.
Gonna be tasteful.
And, I thought the Trequartista fans would enjoy it, the ladies listening. They'd love it, right? Who wouldn't want that picture of Mike with a 10-gallon bucket hat covering his genitalia, but, looking like, he's eager, maybe not.
It's a tease.
It's a tease. No, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm kind of disappointed that that Juventus didn't end up pulling it out, and so instead of a nice and a
we're gonna go for steaks.
and not even a new photo, really just art. Instead of a tasteful piece of art for the podcast,
We could have actually
we would have hung up
right behind us
instead,
here.
what we have now, you have to take Mike up for a nice steak dinner.
Yeah, well, I don't mind. I love steak. I love the restaurant, so we're going to have a good time. Having said that, we should probably get right into it, right? Europa League, Benfica, Juventus, Benfica at the Juventus Stadium. Juventus tying Benfica 0-0, not advancing. Benfica is the one that will be playing the Europa League final at Juventus Stadium. We're going to get into that. Champions League, of course. The final is set. And it's a Derby de Madrid, right? I'm sure there's some name for it, but I don't know.
Like this.
El Derby.
El Derby, which is going to be great. We'll get our takes on that. Serie A roundup, right?
Why not?
There was a lot going on this week. Parma really hot right now. What's going on with Seedorf? Apparently, he's dining out with Thohir. He's gone at Milan. Who knows? Maybe we'll talk about it. Maybe not. We've talked about Seedorf enough. Balotelli. We'll talk a little World Cup. I'm still a little bit bitter about Luca Toni not being selected for the World Cup, or at least the physicals. It's going to come out. I'm going to have to talk about it at some point.
Okay.
Are you cool with that? As long as you're cool with that.
I'm cool.
Mike, you know what? Let's talk about Europa League. And I want to hear, we're going to get plenty of Juventus perspective, plenty of Serie A perspective. I'm sure people are going to be tweeting in, messaging us, emailing us. People are emailing the show all the time. Give us the Benfica perspective. What did you think about these two matches, about Juventus? And do you think that Benfica deserves to be in the final?
I do think they deserve to be in the final. I honestly thought they could have actually gotten a slightly better result at home than they did. I didn't get to watch as much of the matches as I would have liked.
Yeah.
But they fought out there today. And I think the first game it kind of went how we kind of thought. Like,
right.
Benfica hit him quick. They hit him on the counter. They hit him on the set pieces. And one of the names we actually didn't really mention, Garay, who was actually probably one of the best players over both sides.
Yeah, he definitely had a
good
home and away.
Took a nice boot from Pogba near the end of the game, which was disappointing.
Oh, you don't think he was just trying to
he had blood.
Waste some time?
He had blood coming all over the place.
A lot of players are coming out with ketchup packets. It's a Hollywood act.
But
it's a Hollywood tactic.
I was kind of surprised about today's game because I guess the red card I think affected it a little bit more.
Yeah.
That they really had to kind of park the bus a little earlier than expected because they weren't necessarily parking the bus. They were still attacking Juve.
Right.
They weren't really afraid. But I just think Juve were a little unlucky today because Oblak played a hell of a game.
Mm-hmm.
I think they could have come out on top. they definitely had their chances. Just seems like they couldn't really put them away. But Benfica also could have had a chance or two at goal. But I mean,
right.
I think they definitely deserve to win, especially after the disappointment of last season. And hopefully they'll be able to lift the trophy.
Right. Definitely. Them being in the Europa League final 2 years in a row, that's great for Benfica. I think people aren't really talking about that a whole lot, right? Maybe it's just because, what we see on Twitter, what we read is mostly, pro-Juventus or pro-Italian football. But that's besides the fact. For Juventus, look, I think they played maybe the best 90 minutes they played in 2014. And I mean 90 minutes. Juve haven't played a whole 90 minutes in 2014. Or if they have, it hasn't been many games. This game they played 90 minutes. They couldn't get the goal, which obviously terrible. And in the end, that's all that matters. And then when you look at it, though, right, you go up a man, or Benfica goes down a man with 25 minutes left. Juventus is at home. They have the momentum. They bring on extra attackers. And for them to still not be able to score a goal, it maybe just wasn't in the cards. You probably shouldn't be in the Europa League final if you can't get that goal, if you can't get that one goal at Juventus Stadium, especially being a man up. So people can say what they want, whether they want to blame it on Conte or any of the players. I think tactically they went out there, they played a good game, they played their game, they had their chances, but they couldn't put it in the back of the net. And in the end, they didn't deserve to go through. Were they the better team? I think so. And I'm not taking anything away from Benfica or you, Mike, because I respect you as a person. Juventus were the better team. Did they deserve to go through? No. Benfica deserved to go through, and it was a fair result.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right.
Well, I think it's ultimately, if you to win games in Europe, you have to score goals to win games at any level, obviously. And in the games, they might have played a good 90 minutes. Ultimately, it frankly doesn't really matter how good you play for 90 minutes. It's if you can get more goals than the other team. You can play crappy for 85 minutes. If you score one goal at the end and you win 1-0, who cares?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I think, as nice as Juve played at times, I mean, they didn't really have the cutting edge at the end there. They did have some chances. I mean, I think to blame Conte, maybe you could have some quibbles with him about how they played when they played in Lisbon. But even then, I don't think they really played that badly. The game at home, I think for Juve, they came back here with what they wanted, right? They got an away goal. They win 1-0 at home. They were going to go through. I mean, it was something that I think everyone, any Juve fan should have felt confident going in. Not that Benfica is a bad team by any means, but can we win 1-0 at home against the team? I think Juve should think that against pretty much any team they play if they believe they're that good. And so they didn't do it. That's not really Conte's fault that the guys can't score a goal. I don't really blame him for that.
What I will say though, Noah, is that if you look at Europe, in total, right? Champions League, Europa League, psychologically there was something different about Juventus. There was something different in Europe than there was in Serie A. Just look at the results, right? They were giving away last-minute goals in Champions League to Galatasaray twice. Yep. They gave away that tying goal to Fiorentina a couple of weeks ago. They gave away that winning goal to Benfica last week, right? At home, the last two legs against Fiorentina and against Benfica, they weren't able to score at home at all. Oh, they were able to score against Fiorentina, but they tied at home at Juventus Stadium. There was something psychologically different about Juventus in Europe, and whether you want to blame that on Conte, the players not being experienced enough, which I think is BS. Mm-hmm. There was just something clearly there. The result wasn't going to happen.
Let me ask you this: do you think that the fact that this season for Juventus, the Serie A season for them has effectively been over for a while now? Haven't really played too many what you'd call big time games in the league this year. They had and the big time games they played were earlier in the season. They haven't played one of those bigger teams in probably a month and a half, almost, maybe even longer. do you think that the fact that they've really not been seriously challenged in months, plays in? Certainly Benfica is the best team they've probably played in a long time. You know what I mean? And even in the Champions League, when earlier in the season, I mean, maybe Copenhagen are not an elite team, but Galatasaray is not a bad side. Real Madrid obviously are pretty good. You know what
Absolutely.
I mean? And so do you think the fact that they played this season in Serie A, where they really only had one serious challenger all year in Roma, who they play that team twice, did that play into them in Europe? Do you think they weren't
I think so.
ready
Yeah.
for the test? Because those European games are a grind, and especially when you get into the knockout round, and it's really a 180-minute game. Benfica have been there. And not to say Juventus haven't, but I mean, Benfica's not really intimidated. It didn't seem the players weren't intimidated. The manager wasn't intimidated by a very good Juventus team. I mean, they've played good teams, before in the Champions League, and a lot of that squad's been there and been around it. Not to say Juventus were intimidated, but do you think?
No, but they're just used to poor competition.
Ready to play? You think? I mean,
it's not that they're ready. They weren't ready to play. I don't want to say that, but there's definitely a huge discrepancy, a huge gap between Italian league play and European play. Let's face it, Juventus kind of walked through the Serie A season. They didn't have a whole lot of challenges.
No.
They had a few games that they had to squeak by, but by and large, it was a pretty easy season.
Their challenging games were in Europe. But let me
exactly. So when they faced that challenge, when they had to rise up and face that European competition, I thought they fell straight in their face.
Can I play devil's advocate?
Go ahead, yeah.
I mean, the other team that played, Benfica played in a league in Porto. How many seriously challenging games did Benfica really play? I mean, Porto were and Sporting are not bad sides, but certainly it's not like Benfica were in a dogfight for their league either, really.
No, but even that, like a team like Juve, Benfica hasn't played a team like Juve or faced like a midfield like Juve at all.
Probably at all this year. So I mean,
but if we're talking about a gap, though, maybe the gap, the competitive gap in the Portuguese league isn't as wide as it is in the Italian league.
I think it's also more that Benfica. I think when Benfica came into the game today, I mean, they're not favored. You know what I mean? They're not really supposed to win this game. I don't think many people probably would have picked them to progress in this tie. Not that they would get blown out, but probably wouldn't have been picked by a lot of pundits. And
that's a shame because it's almost the case, the same case every year for Benfica. For Portuguese teams in general, right?
Well, sure. I mean, especially, but I mean, if you look at, in the Europa League particularly, but I mean, Porto was in the Champions League final. That was a long time ago now, but I mean, Porto have been good in Europe. You know what I mean? Sure, Benfica's been very good in Europe too.
They generally would make it to the quarterfinals.
Sure. But I think it's a little bit more to me that I think for Benfica, I think they recognize that in this game against Juventus, they're playing up to their competition. You know what I mean? They're playing against a team that's probably on paper a little bit better than them, has more skill than they do, and is certainly just reputation-wise going to be looked at as a bigger club. And so for them, it's a chance to go and take a European scalp and say, we got a result against Juventus. We beat Juventus. We went out and I think a team like Benfica, just like plenty of those other kind of European teams from small leagues like the Shakhtars of the world, even Galatasaray, I think they take pride in saying, we beat Chelsea, we beat whoever. You know what I mean? Games when you guys played Liverpool or whoever. You remember those games. That's a big deal. And I think for Juve, it's not really the same when they go ahead and play Benfica. Not to say they took the game lightly, but I think for them, it's not. They're not looking at it like they have to go out there and say we have to stamp on this team early and dominate it. And I think maybe that a little bit. Maybe their attack.
That might have something to do with it. I think exactly in attack, not so much in attack, but just in general, their strategy. It's a little vanilla. It's a little I want to say predictable.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that played into Benfica's hands, right? And I mean, even the rest of the European teams that they came against, pretty much. I thought their attack was pretty predictable. There's always talk about them switching to a 4-3-3. They stayed in that 3-5-2 for pretty much the whole season. I remember early on in Conte's Yeah.
Just heard some weird background noise.
No, yeah. Early on, for Conte's first year, they were able to switch from the 4-3-3 to the 3-5-2 pretty flawlessly. And I think back then they had Simone Pepe, which apparently makes a huge difference.
Huge difference.
But that allowed them to be a little bit more dynamic, show a different card, right? And they didn't really have that this year. It was pretty much.
I think last year too, there was a couple different ways that team could hurt you because of the play of Paul Pogba as well. Was a different kind of midfielder, one that I think a lot of teams weren't really sure how to play. I mean, everybody knows, Andrea Pirlo, people know what he's going to do. It doesn't mean you can stop it, but you at least are aware of that being a possibility. And Pogba gave them a very different, and even Vidal. And I think it's definitely fair to say Pogba's not been anywhere near as good this year as he was last year. Whether that's because
I thought he played phenomenally in this past game, but yeah.
But I don't think he's been anywhere
near
that level.
That might have a huge part to do with it too. I think you look at that midfield. They're really only rotating two players in that midfield.
Yeah, I think so.
Paul Pogba has been playing since the Under-21 World Cup, right? Was the Under-20 World Cup?
Yeah,
the Under-20
He's been grinding.
He's been grinding.
So
Pirlo coming off the Confederations Cup. Marquisio, same thing. These players have played consistently since August, and they're not rotating a whole lot. Once in a while, they'll rotate Badouin on the outside. Like it was a grinding season, especially for Andrea Pirlo, and you got to give it to him. He had a phenomenal game today. He was giving, the passes he was making today, Pirlo-esque, of course, but like game-changing passes that they couldn't find the back of the net for. It's amazing. Look, yes, were they a little predictable? For sure. Is the midfield fatigued? Yeah, we can say that too. There were a number of different excuses. At the end of the day, it was one goal that they needed, and they couldn't get it.
Hey, but also fatigue and whatnot. Benfica just played a cup match against Porto over the weekend as well, which is a pretty fiery contest. They've had some fixture congestion as well over the last.
What do you think of the Benfica manager? Just real quick, there was a huge debate today about Conte versus the Benfica manager and player rotation. As a Benfica fan, as somebody who watches a lot of Benfica, what do you think of him? Does he rotate the players well? Does he motivate? Tell us a little bit.
I think he does a solid job. He's just some of his antics, like the stuff in the Spurs match, I don't really like to see. Sometimes he's gotten into it with players of the other team, which you don't really like. But overall, he's done a good job at Benfica the last 4 years. Sometimes there's been sometimes where he goes a little too defensive, but honestly, look, he's over the last few years. We've made it to the Europa League final. We made it to 3 Europa League semifinals. We lost to Braga that year. The next year, we lost to Chelsea, the eventual winners, in the quarterfinals of the Champions League. Which, honestly, the 2 games against Chelsea are probably 2 of the best games I've ever seen Benfica play. Unfortunately,
just unfortunate, yeah.
We just kind of like Juve today. In this match, just couldn't get it done. But
makes sense. And the reason I bring that up is because Juventus played Sassuolo this past week, and Conte had 9 starters, 9 first team starters playing in that Sassuolo match when really the league is almost closed up. Those players had to play again today, 3 days later, and the result was what it was. But to be honest, I don't want to use that argument because I think the players, by and large, played pretty well today. I thought everybody kind of played well. Maybe they, didn't finish as well as they should have, of course. But the team played well today. Just wasn't the result. I think that in the end, Juventus fans can say it was an unsuccessful season. I really think so. I think there was more for this team. Could have done more in Champions League, right? Winning a 3rd Scudetto, that's great. I think the field was a little deflated this year. Roma, obviously not. Roma having the best season they've ever had, you could say. Even the Scudetto winning years.
Capello, though.
Well, even in the Scudetto winning years, I don't think they've put up as many points as they put up this season. This is the best in terms of points, I think. We can check that.
It's the best they've had in a long time.
Best they've had in a long time, at least since Ranieri in 2010. But what they did, Juventus 3rd straight Scudetto, great. That's awesome. I know Conte's happy about that. He was never able to do it as a player. But there was more for this team this year, especially when you look at that roster. You look at that midfield. Vidal, Pirlo, Marquisio, Paul Pogba.
Well, you got to think too. I mean, there was more for this team, but also, I mean, two of the key guys in that midfield, or at least, I mean, you could say three. I mean, and Andrea Pirlo, it sounds like he's going to be back next year, but certainly isn't getting any younger.
No.
He's going to need to have his minutes.
He looks young today.
He's going to be at a World Cup. He's in good shape. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But I think, I don't know if he's going to be able to play, a lot of, 40, 50 matches for him next year, like he was, potentially going to have to do this year. And then you got to think too that, I mean, clubs are gonna come knocking for Paul Pogba if he has a good World Cup. Clubs are gonna ask about Ettore Vidal. I mean, and I don't think Juve really are a selling club, but there's gonna be price tags that teams are gonna be willing to pay a lot of money for those players. It becomes something where I think Juve is smart enough to know that at a certain point, you may need to take the money for one of those guys. That team may not to say that they'll be drastically different, but they could lose a player or two in the offseason as well.
Do you think that this is a selling year for Juve?
I wouldn't, because I think that I think you want to kind of this year. I mean, Italy, fine, and they'll be favorites again in Italy next year. I mean, I think right now, I mean, you'd expect them to win a fourth straight.
Yeah.
Scudetto. I mean, Roma's as good as Roma is. I don't think they're going to drastically really be able to improve. And I don't think any of the other teams are anywhere near as good as really Juve. So I think barring one of the Milan teams somehow being able to acquire a lot of players, I don't think anyone's going to come near Juve again unless they really screw it up. But certainly in Europe, I think they're going to expect to do better. They're definitely not going to want to go out in the group stage of the Champions League again. And to win in the Champions League, you need good players. They don't need to sell those guys, I don't think. So I wouldn't say that they need to sell or anything like that. I think it's really up to if there's a situation where a player either wants to leave or you get a bid from a team like a Real Madrid or whoever that's so outrageous that you feel like you need to kind of you'd almost be foolish not to take the money and say like, yeah, we'll sell you Arturo Vidal for X amount, but we're gonna be able to bring in three other guys and strength and bolster the squad. I'm not saying that's necessarily the best business, but ultimately, I mean, especially in European football, it's the rich stay rich, and Juve have a lot of money, but they don't have Real Madrid money. I don't think they have Barcelona money or Man City money, PSG money.
Definitely not.
I mean, if those teams print their own money, they could call up Juve and say, tell me how much you want. You know what I mean? And that's a situation Juve doesn't have to say yes to it, but at the same time, I mean, players. It depends on if they really see Vidal and Pogba being there 3, 4, 5 years. Maybe they do. Maybe that'll happen. That would be nice. I think it'd be better for European football to have not just 4 good teams.
A lot of people like to go back to the Zidane sale, right? And they'll compare a Pogba sale to the Zidane sale. With the Zidane sale, they ended up bringing in Lilian Thuram. They brought in Pavel Nedved and Gianluigi Buffon. 3, Juventus greats, right? And, Juventus went on to win a lot of Scudetti with them. They went to a Champions League final. But Serie A was in a different place at that time, right? They were, it was still probably the prominent league in Europe, the best. Maybe England 1-2 with Italy, right? With Milan, they were in that Champions League final as well.
Both the Milan teams, Juve, Fiorentina.
That was a strong.
I mean, you were talking about 4 or 5 teams.
Lazio too. Lazio too.
I mean, there was probably about 5 to 7 teams that were very. And Parma was not a bad team then either.
Exactly. The soccer landscape in Italy at the time was drastically different. And yes, they brought in those players, but it's not like they won a Champions League by bringing in those players. That never happened. I feel like a player like Pogba is a player that comes around, once every 10 years. You could sell him, you could make tons of money off of him, but you have the team now, right? You have arguably one of the best center midfielders in the world, or potentially one of the best center midfielders in the world on your team now. Why not play for the next season? Why not try for the Champions League? And then if you want to sell after a Champions League run next year or after a Scudetto run next year, that makes all the sense in the world. But let it be known, Juventus are still in a great position for next year, for Champions League, for Serie A, for Coppa Italia too. If Conte wants to do that, I doubt it. But they're in a great position now, and the sale. Why now? Why now when you're in such a good position? When you're trying to climb to the top, not plateaued or declining.
Sure.
That's my take. It just doesn't seem like the season.
No, yeah. You got to think next year the focus is going to be Champions League. Who cares about Scudetto?
Yeah, but at the same time,
they don't have to care about this kid. They're not going to be seriously challenged.
Exactly. They could win the Scudetto too if they wanted to.
They could have dropped. How many points are they clear right now? They could have lost another 2 games and it would have been fine.
Yeah, look,
It's
and I don't want to take anything away from Roma because they had a great season.
They did, but it's not even just Roma. It's saying if you're only going to be seriously challenged by one team, you have to be ready for those 2 games. And you might drop some points, they might drop some points, but it's a lot different than a situation like we saw in the Premier League this year, where if you lost a game, you might have lost. For Liverpool losing to Chelsea now, that might have blown the door wide open. We saw Arsenal in for there was 4 or 5 teams that you couldn't really afford to drop a lot of points. In pretty much every other European league this year, not just Italy. You could lose a game and it was all right.
Yeah,
Realistically, the games didn't mean as much because there's fewer teams that are really going to battle for that first place. It's just the way, and that's not anything to do with Italy. Go to Germany and see how exciting the league was this year. It was a joke. It was basically done in January, February. You might as well not even play the second half of the season as far as the championship goes.
I was honestly surprised that it was over that quickly. Actually, I don't think I can remember a league finishing that quickly. Yeah,
I'm sure. It's the earliest pay-per-view we've ever won.
Yeah.
Honestly. I don't know if that's true for every team, but even for them.
Yeah.
But the point is that it's. Juventus this year. I think Juventus this year were focused on the Champions League. I don't think that it's really a question of them. They were not taking it seriously. I think that they just weren't. They weren't able to get the results, and it comes down in the European games. It comes down to saying it really doesn't matter how good you play. You could pass. Great, you completed 500, 600, 800 passes. That's awesome. But did you score any goals? That's what it comes down to. And Juventus didn't score goals when they had to. They didn't score a goal against Copenhagen when they needed to. They didn't score a goal against Galatasaray. You know what I mean? Those were the games they needed to get goals. And when they needed to get goals, they absolutely had to have them. They didn't get them. That's really what happened.
Do you think Juventus right now, with the forwards that they have, or the main 2 forwards, Llorente and Tevez, do you think those are good enough forwards for Champions League next season?
I think so. I don't think it was. I think there's nothing wrong with if they wanted to see if they could add a 3rd forward, not Pablo Osvaldo.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be.
What was up with that
I wouldn't think that would be a bad move to add a 3rd guy, but I think to me it's just. I think it's not that the team is the problem, and maybe I think this is where you could maybe put some heat on Conte, because it's the manager that instills the attitude in the players, kind of, and the players still have to follow through. But I think it just when push came to shove, the team wasn't able to grind out just an ugly result in Europe. They just weren't able to do it, and that's kind of what you have to do sometimes. You know what I mean? And I think Benfica were used to that. I think Galatasaray were used to that. They said, look, we don't really care if we play great. We just need to get a result. Let's just go get one. You know what I mean? That attitude of just we have to do it. And I think Juve kind of felt like they wanted to come in and they wanted to win, but I think they wanted to say look, not just that we won, but look how we won. Look at the way we played the ball. Look at the ability we have to make that telling pass or make that finish or I think they wanted, just like Bayern Munich, I think became a little too obsessed with passing the ball against Real Madrid in the Champions League, and Real Madrid said, you can pass it around all you want. We're going to get the ball and go direct to you and try to stop us. And I think it just became a little, not that Juve were playing that style, but I think when it came down to it, they weren't able to say, look, let's just play free and direct. Let's just, see what we can do. And let's just start, trying to do what we can to get a goal. And if it's ugly, it's ugly.
Yeah.
And that's a mentality thing too. It's not
just it is a mentality thing. Let's switch gears now. You talked a little bit about it just now. Mm-hmm. Champions League. Mike, bigger surprise to you, Atletico Madrid in the final or the beating that Real Madrid put on Bayern Munich this past week?
I'd probably say Madrid. I mean, more so.
Well, which one? Is this
That's
two?
true.
Oh, you got
Real.
it.
Real.
But a safe take from you.
Yeah.
Madrid.
Let's keep it there.
I mean, the fact they were up like 2-0, what was it, the first 20 minutes?
Yeah.
That was pretty shocking.
It was 3-0 at halftime, wasn't it?
Yeah, but I was watching at work. I was actually just monitoring the score.
Well, you were doing your work, obviously.
And then I put the game up for the second half and went to a conference room, but
Classic.
it was just,
Right.
it was.
Classic.
That's the move.
I'd say
right?
that was a
Mr.
little
Dan.
more surprising, just because Chelsea, they're really hit or miss, and
I don't know, though. I mean, they won Europa League last year. They won Champions League the year before that. You'd think, hey,
I think to me,
maybe that's in their DNA. Maybe they, more than any other team, have that grit to win it.
I think, well, Atletico?
no,
Chelsea.
I mean, they usually do, but
But
just-
the Chelsea
they
lost
stumbled.
some big games too. I mean,
this year, I mean, what was it, Sunderland that killed them?
yeah. Well, they've been up and down. But I think to me, Atletico to me was not. They were the bigger surprise, not because of the fact that they got a result, but I mean they got a 0-0 draw at home. And I think most people that could have seen Atletico progressing, and I think there were plenty of people that could have seen that happening, would have said, if Atletico don't win at home, or they're going to be in trouble. It was a 0-0 game, so basically Chelsea go back to Stamford Bridge and say, look, if we just win at home, we're going to go through. And not only did they not win, but I mean Atletico ripped them apart.
Yeah.
I mean, they were not even. It wasn't like they got a couple lucky goals or whatever. I mean, they were the better team.
They were the better team. They had the
and
majority of the chances.
And I thought that was a little bit more surprising. Real Madrid have, not that Atletico don't have good players, but I think Real Madrid were a bad matchup for Bayern Munich. And I think Atletico, I thought, were not a terrible matchup for Chelsea. I said, Atletico's quick. They've got a good forward, but I was like, Diego Costa is a quick guy, but if Cahill and Terry kind of stay up on him, they're physical enough that they can throw him off his game. They've got the way Chelsea play with the two holding midfielders. They'll be able to keep the ball more than Atletico and make Atletico chase the game, and they'll get a goal. And that's kind of what I thought would happen with Bayern Munich. It was just all passing. They just passed the ball around, great. And Real Madrid kind of just said, you can pass all you want. And Bayern created some chances for sure, but really what happened was, Bayern, I think, just had the idea of let's just keep the ball and pass it around. And when Real Madrid got the ball, they said, we're going to do something with it now because we might only have the ball 30% of the time in this game. And Real Madrid have the players. Those wingers are extremely quick. And what happens when, and you guys know this too, right? When you're on a team that's very good at possessing the ball, what happens, right? Defenders and midfielders start getting dragged out of position. Defenders start saying, I want to overlap. I want to be the one to cross the ball. I want to be the one that makes this run. And the center back says, well, let me come up and support. Now the midfielder's coming here. Nobody's covering, and if you turn the ball over, you have to be very good at scrambling back into position. Barcelona were very good at that. Bayern just weren't. And what happened? Real Madrid have the players that are quick enough to make you pay if you're out of position, and they made them pay, and then they took advantage of them set pieces.
Absolutely beat them up and down each flank, right and left. One thing about Real Madrid, and I'm not breaking any news here, but you want to look at some big, a big difference between how Juventus played the last few Europa League matches and Real Madrid. I don't know why I'm making this comparison, but how prolific are these strikers? I mean, to score a goal, it takes one chance, not 5 chances, right?
Well, yeah,
it was phenomenal. I mean, I'm me. I love watching German teams get beat to death, but
I actually didn't even really know that.
You didn't know that?
I mean, I kind of.
Yeah, well, I love it. I absolutely love it. And that was just one of those cases where you convert on every chance you have. Maybe not every chance, but there were no wasted opportunities.
Yeah.
There were no wasted opportunities.
Yeah.
This is the Champions League semifinals. We can't waste any opportunities.
Well,
and you had that. That whole attitude throughout the whole match from Real Madrid.
Well, not to compare, Arsenal and Bayern Munich, but those are teams that like to keep the ball a lot and like to. And it's almost like you have to pass it into the goal for it to count for in some ways for some of those teams. And I felt like Bayern Munich just made these games too complicated. Yeah. It was about, well, we have to make all these passes, and now, oh, like, is it okay if I hit a through ball now? Like, we completed 20 passes, so I can do this. And Real Madrid made the game very simple. Let's get the ball wide to our most skillful, quickest players. Let them run at defenders 1v1. It's so difficult to defend anybody 1v1 that's got any kind of skill, let alone the pace those guys have. And what happened? You put the backline under pressure, and they were able to create chances that way. And then you give credit to the players on Real Madrid up and down. Sergio Ramos got some goals too. They took their chances when they were provided to them, and Bayern Munich didn't do it. And that's really Real Madrid made the game very simple. Yes. Just isolate your best players against their defenders and run at them and see what you can do.
You have to give it to Diego Simeone, though, right? I mean, how disciplined is this Atletico Madrid team? I
love this quote too, where he thanked the mothers of the players for giving their sons like big balls. It's just a great quote.
I mean, you got big balls. You got
Thanks
big balls.
to the moms, you know.
You got to thank the moms. Because really, isn't it all with the parents?
Well, look at Mother's Day's coming.
Didn't they shape you? Speaking of which, it's Mother's Day, folks. And what are you going to buy your mom for Mother's Day? Everybody's running around last minute. Flowers, chocolates. What should I get? I'm telling you, 1-800. No, I'm just kidding. Nobody's sponsoring this game. Yeah.
Simeone did a great job. But I think he made an interesting. That kind of humorous quote aside, he made a good point after the game, which is, I can kind of say, I can lay out a good plan, but it's on those guys to go execute it, and they had the mentality to execute, right? They were, he kind of said if I didn't have the type of players that were willing to go out and say, yeah, let's attack Chelsea, a team that's won the Europa League last year, won the Champions League before that, a good team, right? Coached by a very good manager. Yep. It's a hostile environment. They're tied 0-0. He could have said, look, guys, we're going to look to hit them on the break, steal an away goal. Worst comes to worst, we get it to penalties. You know what I mean? Take our chances. He said, no, let's go toe-to-toe with these guys. And some, the players embrace that. When you have a manager that believes in you like that and says, let's go get them, I think it instills some confidence in the side. It's not as exciting when you hear your manager say, look, guys, I don't really think there's a way we can beat this team 11v11, so let's just see if we can get it to penalties, all right? Like, you're not as excited, right? You don't really feel like the manager believes in you. And Simeone believes in those guys, obviously has a great relationship with the club and the players. And you got to just, ultimately you give credit to the two Madrid teams. They went out to play, and they played kind of in an attacking way. They tried to be direct, tried to make the game simple, and those were the results.
Let's switch gears to Serie A. Let's talk a little bit about Luca Toni for a second. So this isn't really Serie A. This is Serie A mixed with the Luca Toni minutes, coming off 2 goals this past week. Obviously not selected. Look, you see players like Mario Balotelli who have a majority of their goals from penalty kicks and only, I want to say like 4 or 5 less than Luca Toni. Pablo Osvaldo making the list, right? Zaza, right? Even though he had a goal against Juventus. Luca Toni, he scored. Can we see how many goals he scored? Is it 17, I think? I believe it's 17 goals this past season.
It's a lot of return.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people are saying that, it was good that Prandelli didn't select him. He doesn't have the legs. Let me tell you, he has the legs. They're long and muscular, and they are good enough to score 17 goals in this past.
19. He's got
19. Sorry,
so
19 to this past weekend. 19 goals. How can you say a guy doesn't have legs for the World Cup when at 36 he scored 19 goals this past Serie A season? With Verona, this is a team coming from Serie B, and he scored 19 goals. And we got one tweet. I don't know who said it. Let me see what the tweet was. Something about Luca Toni and that how he's.
Yeah, exactly.
Who was it? Actually, yeah, it was Liora. Actually, I think was it Liora?
Yeah.
Well,
I don't know.
Anyway, somebody's.
Yeah, it was Luigi.
Yeah, Luigi, who contribute, great contributions to the podcast with his tweets. We love him. We get a lot of material from him. So that he's glad that Prandelli didn't take Luca Doni because the Azzurri don't need a big man that you can just log the ball up to for 90 minutes. Luigi, with all due respect, if you watch Verona play, that's not how Luca Doni is scoring his goals, and that's not how they're playing at all. Luca Doni is scoring from the corners. He's scoring, yes. I mean, are people lobbing the ball up to him? And is he playing with his back to the goal? Yes, he's doing that. But he's getting goals off of rebounds. He's finishing in more ways than one. So it's 19.
I like that.
So I mean, is he? Do you have him in the starting lineup for the Italian national team? No, but he brings something to the table. Somebody who can score goals when you need them in the last 20 minutes of the game, the last 10 minutes of a game. Somebody that a big body that you can rely on corner kicks. You can rely on free kicks that can finish. To me, he's like an automatic forward in Italy, as automatic as they come. So that's why it makes no sense to me, and especially coming off the season that he's had, the fact that he's a good person. I feel like I talk about this almost every week, but we're looking at this Italian national team, right? And I made this point earlier this week. I mean, can they get any more unlikable than the attackers that we have? Can they get any more unlikable? Balotelli, Cassano, Pablo Osvaldo. I don't even want them on the team. I don't even want them representing Italy just as people. It's fucking terrible. But whatever. Italian aside, yeah, exactly. They're great players. I'll give it to them. But here you have a good person who scored a lot of goals, having a great season, who's won a World Cup. Why not give the guy a nod?
Mike, you want to?
No, I totally agree with Joe. I mean, right now, he's got the numbers to prove it.
Do you know, 4 years ago, I had a similar argument. Do you remember who that was for?
No.
Mike knows.
It's got to be...
We didn't have the pod 4 years ago. This was just...
Well, we didn't have this pod, but it was a pod.
Fabrizio
Micoli, who, even back then, kind of taking the Tevez approach right now, saying he's going to be on vacation for the World Cup.
Oh, he's going to be on vacation.
Because he doesn't think he's going to be selected. I don't know why Argentina would not bring Tevez to the World Cup.
Yeah. Just go.
Great for Juve.
Yeah, for sure. For sure, great for Juve, right? Have him rested.
Have a nice, well-rested Tevez. But...
Look, it's almost. I just think it's offensive not to at least include Luca Doni on that 40-man team. It's a little offensive, right? Just a little offensive.
Let me give it to you.
Give it to me a different way, Noah.
So, to me, I mean, I feel like they're trying to not. I feel like they're almost trying not to be offensive by it because I think if you bring him in for a medical and they say, look, I think it's pretty clear Prandelli doesn't see a spot for him in the squad. Doesn't think that he's going to be able to contribute. Doesn't think that he's going to be able to do. Otherwise, they would be bringing him.
But
so I think to me, I think it would almost be more offensive to be like, well, look, let's throw the old guy a bone. We'll have him come in for a medical, and then we'll be like, no, we're not taking him because they brought in 40 people for medicals, and they're going to have to. 10 of those guys aren't going to go. So
they can only bring 23 to the World Cup.
Yeah. So more than that. So 17 guys aren't going to go. I feel like maybe that would be almost even more offensive is to get the guy's hopes up and then be like, look, Luca, we like you. You're a nice guy, right? We heard the podcast. Joe said you're a good dude. It's fine. We believe him. You're a good guy. Joe referred you. But ultimately, we're not bringing you. We're doing this because it's going to look good that we did it. You scored 19 goals, so we're going to do it. It's fine. For me,
but see, the whole you scored 19 goals, whatever, that's a big deal, 19 goals. None of those were penalty kicks.
No.
None of those were penalty kicks.
But to me, 19 goals means what does that mean, right? The guy's an excellent finisher. And right now, probably maybe the best finisher in Italy, just regardless of nationality in the Italian league.
Yeah.
So there's no doubt about that, right? The guy can finish. I think that the way that the national team is looking at it is, I don't think they see him. He's not going to play 90 minutes. He's not going to play 90 minutes for them, and I think they look at it like if he's not going to play 90 minutes, that means that we're bringing him on to be probably a 20 to 30 minute player if he's gonna see the field. Fine, let's do that. But to me, I don't think that Prandelli plans to play a way that he feels like Luca Toni will be effective. So I think he looks at it like it's a wasted spot in the squad to bring this guy on and be like, oh, guys, we need to change everything for the last 30 minutes because we're bringing this guy on that's going to, he's going to need crosses into the box. It's not the only way he scores. You're right. He's not going to just run around and they're not just going to lob balls in the box. But you can't say that Luca Toni's. You can't argue to me that he's the most effective when he's attacking balls in the air. That's what he is good at. That's why he scores lots of goals. Those rebounds that he gets, they're because crosses are going into the box and he's attacking them and following them and finishing. Whether it's a scrappy goal or a headed goal.
That's the game.
Sure. But I don't think that they feel like they're going to be playing in a way that he is going to be effective. And if they're not going to do that, I don't think they feel like he brings enough to the table where he's worth including in the squad. That's really all it is. Now, I think give the guy a look because I don't think not because he's even to me the 19 goals thing, it's a big deal. But club form. Just like teams that play good in their domestic league and play bad in the Champions League, I don't think they're always tied together. He's in good form.
But don't you feel that? I mean, if you score 19 goals, or if you have a truly remarkable season, that maybe you're at least deserving of something. A lot of these players play to get on that national team. You don't think so at all?
I don't really feel like I think that's a fair argument to make, but I don't think that Prandelli should feel like, well, he had a good season, so I have to bring him. I think it's
but you're at least deserving of a.
You're not even bringing necessarily the best players you have from your country. You're bringing the 23 players that you feel like you can win 7 games with. That's what it has nothing to do with best players. You're bringing the players that are going to work in the squad. Look what happens when the Dutch bring all their best players.
He just
doesn't work.
The thing about Luca Toni, it's not like he's been proven to not work.
No, I don't disagree with that.
And the whole 90-minute thing, absolutely. You think Luca Toni's going to play 90 minutes in a World Cup? No. But, 2006 for a perfect example. Del Piero, Vincenzo Iaquinta, Filippo Inzaghi, players that played spot minutes that all had crucial goals.
But I think that I just don't think Prandelli sees that as how he's going to have this team play. Now, my argument for bringing it has nothing to do with how good he's been. It's frankly that the other attacking players they have massive question marks to go along.
Huge.
Balotelli's been terrible this year.
Terrible.
Who else? Giuseppe Rossi's been good, but when he's been healthy, he's hurt. They have Osvaldo, who had a nightmare time at West Ham.
Who scored 0 goals in 2014.
Was terrible at
Southampton. And maybe with Southampton.
I think he did score for Southampton. He was very good for Southampton, though, anyway. But hasn't had a positive year. El Shaarawy is, I think, in that squad been really probably even worse than Balotelli's been.
0 goals in Serie A for Osvaldo.
I do think that that's I think it's worth bringing a guy that has scored some goals just because nobody else in the squad has. So I would agree with you that
Immobile is going to be there too. He scored 21 goals.
Yeah,
he definitely deserves it.
It's more for me. It's I think the idea of deserving. This isn't a perfect comparison, but I mean the U.S. national team is going to bring Josie Altidore, who's been absolutely terrible this year. He hasn't scored a goal in the Prem. I think he scored 1 goal for Sunderland in a Capital One Cup game. I mean, to me, that just because he's had such a huge setback of a year in England doesn't mean that he's now going to have a terrible World Cup. Just as much as how great Luca Toni has been this year wouldn't mean that he'd go to the World Cup and score 5 goals.
Yep.
They're not. I don't think they're the same thing. But I think it's fair to say that he should get a shot because he has been very good,
Absolutely.
And because frankly nobody else. It's not like. If Balotelli had an excellent year, if El Shaarawy had, what I mean, you'd say they're younger, we need, what I mean, there'd be a reason to keep Luca Toni off. There isn't really a reason with how poor the rest of the forward options have been, but I don't know. I don't really feel like it's that big of a thing, frankly. I mean, I think it's Luca Toni going wouldn't have won Italy a World Cup. Him not going is not going to lose him a World Cup. That's how I look at it.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we could,
I mean, we'll see what happens. I mean.
Yeah, I mean, Lucadillo's not going to win the World Cup. I'll tell you that.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, but that's what I mean. I think
if you have him up your sleeve, that's pretty nice.
No, it's not. Yeah, I think it's fair to say that. I just think, to me, the idea of this level of upset that's not there just doesn't really. Yeah. I don't know. I just don't. For me, I don't get it. He's a good player, but I think at the end of the day, I don't think Italy are going to really miss him a ton. Yeah. If they get knocked out in the group stage, it's not going to be because they didn't bring Lucadillo. It's going to be because they have.
And I think you said it best. The attackers for Italy in this World Cup are it's a huge question mark.
Well, yeah,
huge question mark.
Well, they'll have to step it up.
Let's move on to Milan right now. A lot of speculation that Seedorf will be out in the coming weeks. What do you think of this, Noah? Do you think that it's a little unfair to knock him out here, or is it did they get the wrong former Milan player to be the coach? I read the agenda a little bit. Tell us what you think.
I defended the Seedorf thing. Me and you were talking about this. This is probably a little while ago, maybe a month and a half ago. But we were saying you thought that he was going to be out pretty soon. You didn't think.
I didn't want that.
No. Yeah, but you kind of thought he's going to be out. They hired him at the wrong time. I was kind of saying, it's okay for him to have this kind of throwaway year and let him build his team and go after it. And that's what I still think should happen. But I think now, I don't know if he's going to make it through the summer, which I think is not only unfair. I mean, it's just Milan. They basically.
It's Milan not learning.
They basically made a move. I don't really know what they expected to happen. I mean, they hired a guy that has managed for a few months in Brazil.
And honestly, he hasn't done that bad as a manager.
Brought him back. Said, look, your young player El Shaarawy, we're in a loan now. His confidence is completely shattered. Balotelli is your guy. We think he can shoulder the load, but sometimes he just goes nuts. You have Kaká for another year, but he's probably not going to be here after that. You know what I mean? And that's about it, pal. See what you can do with this group of misfits. And then, when he didn't do that well, they were like, well, you're going to get fired. You know what I mean? It's I don't understand the thought process at all. I felt like this was the opportunity to build some things with, Tarab, who they had, Honda, who they brought in.
These are some great players.
Well, not even that, but this is just a chance for Seedorf. See what you can see how his relationship with Balotelli is. That's a guy that's going to be very important to you potentially. Yep. Can he get through to him? Can he figure out a way to play with Honda and Tarap and some of these creative players? Who's going to be the holding midfielder? There were things they could have used this time for, and instead now it's already ruined because even if they had decided, even if Seedorf stays. I mean, he's aware of all this stuff. There's all these backroom deals and all this gossip and sniping
it's
between
just
people.
Bullshit. It's
so
all
even if Seedorf makes it through the summer, he's gonna think when he's going into the season in August, well, if I lose the first couple games, I'm probably out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Instead of them going to Clarence and being like, look, the results are sucking right now. We need you to just figure some stuff out. Try to make us be respectable, which he's actually done.
Yeah,
And then. Look, in the summer, let's sit down. Let's see what we can do. We don't have a ton of money, but we can bring in a few players. Let's sell some guys. Let's do that. And then if you're sucking by Christmas, Clarence, we might have a problem. Too much to ask.
And I still maintain the position that Milan hasn't learned. This isn't a growing project, I should say.
That's what I thought.
This isn't an overhaul or anything like that. There is no change in the company. I'm going to call it a company's identity at all. It's the same thing as it was. They had Seedorf in to kind of, like you said, steady the ship. But whatever it is, whether it be the media, backroom deal, I don't know what's going on. Yes, he lost against Roma. The team is
second best team in Italy.
The second best team in Italy. They're not even close to Roma. What do you expect? And now he might unfairly get the boot. Would I be surprised if Milan start with Inzaghi next season? No, I wouldn't be surprised. I think it'll probably happen. But just really unfair how Seedorf was treated. And you'd expect better from a club like that. But hey,
I guess not.
I guess not.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What about, we should talk about another, former Milan player that's managing at Parma right now, because Parma's on a pretty good run.
I think we're up against the clock.
With Donadoni.
Yeah,
do
Donadoni.
you think there's any chance that Donadoni
I think there's
Milan?
There's a chance.
And next year?
I think.
It's a little bit different. Parma and
Inzaghi,
Milan, not the same.
I would say Inzaghi is the front runner. He's coaching the youth. He's coaching the youth teams right now. He's really bred for that job.
Sure, but what's the difference between Inzaghi? I mean, Inzaghi's a young coach just getting his start. They fired one.
It's not, though, because Inzaghi's been with the youth program. He stayed in Italian football, where Seedorf was really playing soccer last season. Like, he was, it's kind of weird.
But a youth,
he was playing soccer when they
took him. But a youth, I just don't see the point. Like, if you're hiring a young manager to build around, and then you fire him, and then you bring in another young manager to build around. Yes, he's been with the youth team. What youth players are they using? What youth players are they going to bring through? I would say that he hasn't provided them with any youth players.
Our good buddy,
he hasn't done anything for them to get.
Our good buddy David Amoyal, said it. Why do I call him David? Like he's fucking David Silva. Our good friend David Amoyal said it best. When it comes to Milan, you got to throw logic out the window.
I guess.
And I think that rings true here. You know what? Why don't we just go to grievances?
Okay.
It's about that time of the show. Leora has a grievance. Leora's a fan of the show, always interacting, always tweeting at us. Let's talk about her grievance for a second. And I'm interested to get your take. Parking the bus. People talk about parking the bus as a bad thing. They say it's anti-football, when really it's just a strategy, isn't it? It's just one way to play the game, right?
Yeah. You play to win the game. It doesn't matter how you plan to win, and that's kind of the thing about a two-legged tie. It's adds a bit more strategy to it. So.
And if your players if you don't have as good of players as the team you're opposing, right? Man for man, you don't have that team. Why not park the bus? Why not play more defensively? You want to say it's anti-football, that's fine, but a team doesn't want to lose 5-0 if they play at their full force.
I think there's a difference between parking the bus, though, and playing just counterattacking. So I'm fine if you want to hit people on the break, but I'm not gonna lie. I mean, if I'm watching a game and there's a team putting 10 people behind the ball after 20 minutes, I'm not finishing the game. I'm not gonna watch that crap. It's a waste of time. If you're supporting the team and you need a result, I understand. Believe me, I mean, Leeds United play lots of teams that are better than them, and I don't have a problem if they're trying to get a point and you put guys behind the ball. But I will tell you this: if I'm watching a neutral game and someone's going to stop playing with the ball and just be like, screw it, we're just going to kick you when you get the ball, and we're going to boot it as long as we can, I'm not going to waste my time watching it. I'll tell you that. It's a waste of my time.
That's fair. Maybe it's not the most consumer-friendly type of way to play the game, but
like you said,
to win a game, if you need to win that game that way, and if you want to complain about it, just go home and complain about it. You should be better than that.
If you want to play to win the game, that's fine, but don't ask me to then watch you try to win the game.
I'm with you, Leora. I like the way you're thinking there. Mike, you got one?
Yeah, my grievance is against FIFA and their.
No way. They listen to this too.
And their policy of not being able to transfer
this is actually funny.
World Cup tickets when you are the primary ticket holder, which in turn makes me not able to go to the World Cup.
After spending quite a bit of money.
Oh,
well, you get the money. Yeah, I know.
But you spent a couple quid for sure.
Yeah, $20-$30.
For those, basically, I signed up for World Cup tickets under my dad's name because he's actually a citizen.
In Portugal.
For the Portugal games.
Yeah.
And you can follow your team in this way if you're a citizen and whatnot. And so, I won tickets every game up until the final. And apparently there's some verbiage in there where it says you can transfer tickets, blah, blah, blah. And then there's one random line in there that
Is this to say not?
No.
That'd be good. I'd say FIFA, good one. I like that.
You got me.
I mean, I still think they changed the resale things after the last window.
So they effed you.
Basically.
Okay.
So yeah. No World Cup for this guy. And unfortunately, it's kind of Benfica's fault.
It's all right. We're gonna be having a World Cup watch party, probably in Boston.
Down at the docks.
You know, we'll see. Maybe it's a traveling show. Maybe we go to New York. You know, maybe we test things out. You know, probably not. We'll probably be in Boston.
Probably be
You got one?
Probably be.
Would you want me to go? Do you got one?
Yeah, you can go. I do have one.
Yeah, it's Balotelli. Balotelli, such a
I like this day.
just a prissy bitch. Like, you know, when you're getting substituted, and this happens each time he gets substituted, and, you know, Seydorf will take him off, he'll always do the look like, oh, you're going to do that to me? Oh, me? Okay. Walk off the field. You know, Luca Toni would not do that. Luca Toni would not do that. Luca Toni would respect the manager's decision, give a clap to the fans, because you know he put in a good fucking effort that game, as he does every game. And he would have walked out the field, and that would have been that. But no, Balotelli, for some reason, thinks he's bigger than the team, even though his performance has been piss poor the last couple of weeks, basically the whole season. And he's gonna make a bigger deal of it. And then he gets crap from the media. This past week, it was I don't know if it was Boban. Somebody gave him crap, whatever. He didn't take well to it, said some disrespectful things. Like, you act like this, you're only gonna get it worse, right? You know, the kid that doesn't like to get picked on, right? In the schoolyard, they get it the worst.
Shove him in a locker.
So stop. Just stop it. You say grow up. You can't. Nothing's happening. It's just the same thing with Balotelli. So I'm not sure if there's any more growth there
that's what he is.
as a professional.
That's what he is.
It is what it is. And hopefully with the national team under Prandelli, he's a different person. You know, he's a different player. He is what it is, but a different person. But it's just frustrating, man. It's just really frustrating. Walk off the field and you know, put your jacket on and don't make a big deal of it. You're just like every other player. Noah.
So they were talking about the financial fair play. Supposedly, PSG and Man City are gonna get the full wrap of financial fair play and get like a slap on the wrist fine or something. My thing with the financial fair play is, you know, you don't have to lie to us. Just tell us, like, you're doing it because everyone thought it was unfair.
Yep.
But obviously you're not going to go and really try to hurt any of these big clubs because they're the ones that give you all the money. So there's no chance that Man City and PSG are gonna miss European games. They're not going to miss games. I don't care what any of the rules say. If a real good team, if a real big team gets in trouble with this, they're going to figure a way out so that they can keep playing. Just don't lie to us. Just be like, look, the richest teams run UEFA. They run it. They do whatever they want, and they run the Champions League, and that's how soccer works there.
Yeah.
And if you want to, you know, have your financial fair play, go watch the NFL where there's a salary cap, and they do that stuff there. It will never happen over here because you need the rich teams to agree to it and say, sure, we'd love to spend less money on our team, and we'd love for some of our best players to leave. That sounds like a great idea. Whoa, you know what? Here, I'll share some of my revenue with West Brom if I'm Chelsea. West, do you guys want any money? That's fine. They're never going to go for that. It's never going to happen. And just to be lied to by the financial fair play, well, it's pretty serious. You know, if you get in trouble,
it's pretty serious.
How many of the teams would potentially run afoul of the financial? The only teams that could get hurt by it are the teams that would be like, no, we're not going to do that. If you want us to give you some money, we've already spent way too much anyway. We'll give you some money. Fine. So the whole thing is an absolute farce. It's ridiculous. And if anybody really thinks that teams will get punished from it, they're absolutely fooling themselves.
Noah, as Fred Durst of the great Limp Bizkit once said, it's all about the Benjamins, baby.
I thought you were just keep
He also said keep rolling. And,
rolling.
And it's all about the nookie as well.
and
No,
that
He
applies.
didn't say it's all about the nook. He said he'd give it all.
Yeah, it's all fucking Fred Durst.
Don't even the Limp Bizkit, dude.
Mike, change your name. Easy solution there. Okay.
That's all for tonight's show. Join us next week, maybe the week after that. Who knows? But I had a great time in this episode.
Yeah, let's do it again soon.
Let's do it again soon. Thank you for listening, and take care.
God bless.